Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about the sun in astrology. Now, the sun in astrology can represent life, our true self, vitality, and where we want to shine and how we will shine, or at least how we want to shine. Now, the sun in Cancer, for example, could represent somebody that inwardly is very temperamental, emotional, sensitive, and nurturing. The house position could show where we want to shine again. And now, for example, if you have the sun in the third house, you may want to shine in communications. And if let's say if the sun was in Aquarius, it might be something Aquarius-like, such as talking about writing maybe about new ideas, concepts, innovations, esoteric subjects such as astrology. So anyway, another thing is that the sun represents the right eye in males and left eye in females. Now, if you have the sun making an adverse aspect to your ascendant, there may be some eye difficulties and deterioration. Now, I've also noticed that because Pluto represents death and the sun life, now, if the sun, let's say, I've noticed in transits, when transit Pluto conjoins one's natal sun, I've seen deaths occur when this happens, and I believe it is because, as I stated before, that Pluto does represent death, the sun does represent life. Now, also, another thing that the sun represents, along with Saturn, of course, is the father. Now, the thing about that is that, let's say, for example, if you have the sun in the 12th house, the father image may have been dissipated, and you may have seen the father as somewhat docile, passive, or weak. This could be also possible with an unaspected sun as well, I believe. Now, this could be modified by the sign it is in, such as if it were Aries or Leo. So, now, another thing about the sun being in the 12th house, if you have the sun in the 12th house, now that could represent, as far as how it, another way it affects the person, is that this could represent somebody that has diminished energy and vitality. Now, somebody, say, with the sun in the 12th house in Leo may not quite have that that near inexorable Leo sun energy is otherwise indicated. But keep in mind too that as far as the vitality goes, Mars in the ascendant can play a role in that as well. Now, it's also interesting to see how the sun can work in synastry. Now, let's say that someone has their south node making a conjunction to your natal sun. That person with the south node can be that energy depleter. Keep in mind, I think a lot of that has to do with the south node representing what we're going away from. And what happens is when you have that conjunction to one's sun in synastry, well, it might make that person's energy feel like it's going away, and they might have a taxing effect on that sun person, unfortunately, as far as energy goes. Now, also, as far as aspects goes, well, if the sun in a natal chart is making predominantly good aspects, this could indicate that the sun's energy is positively used more than negatively, and the person might have very well be able to attain their basic wants a little bit easier without as many obstructions and obstacles. So, but let's say the opposite is true. Let's say that the person's sun in their natal chart has mainly adverse aspects. So this could be a person, unfortunately, that might encounter a lot of roadblocks and a lot of obstacles in terms of trying to attain their basic wants, and also in the area where they need to shine in, which is indicated shining in the way indicated by the sun sign and house position, perhaps. So Also, I mean, aspects do, I mean, play a role as well. Now, I mean, if you look at, let's say that you have the Sun in your natal chart making an adverse aspect to your natal Pluto, well, there could be power struggles with the father. There might also be crisis situations and upheavals involving the father as well. Could also indicate that maybe crisis situations and upheavals may conflict to some degree with you in trying to attain your basic wants, and that area where you need to shine indicated by the sun signs by the sun sign and house position. Also, the sun by transit can show where the creative energy is focused at that particular time. So let's say, for example, that you have the transit Sun in Scorpio in your third house. Now, this could be someone that puts a lot of focus in communication in Scorpio-like matters such as astrology, the occult, supernatural, mysteries, and the macabre, I mean, as some examples, and maybe even talking about things a little bit morose or morbid, such as death. So anyway, this and also it could be a focus on deep communications and ones that are non-superficial, of course. So anyway, let's say transits to the Sun can be significant as well, as I talked about the transit Pluto making that conjunction to one's natal Sun. But it could also, I mean, as far as the death thing goes, yes, it could indicate that in some isolated cases. But in other cases, it could be where you feel your inner self is wanting to make a very strong and powerful transformation. There could be a major change in the vitality level as well, and perhaps in how you want to maybe shine or stand out. So anyway, well, the Sun in a progressed chart could have similar effects to those that are as opposed to the Sun in transit, but will be for a much more sustained period in one's house in a progressed chart, as opposed to a transit, because you're talking obviously about, could be about years in a progressed chart, as opposed to on average in a transit. On average, you're going to have the Sun transit a house for about 30 days. So anyway, but as far as an example progressed Sun placement, let's say, for example, that you have the Sun in Aquarius in the 5th house in a progressed chart. Well, this could indicate at the time that the person may put a lot of focus, energy, I should say focus and concentration of energy into perhaps unusual forms of entertainment and getting recognition, maybe for something, personal recognition for something Aquarius-like, such as innovation, ingenuity, astrology, aeronautics, computers, or electronics, and could also be, and anyway, but keep in mind, as I stated before, that the progression, of course, will last for often a much longer period of time, as opposed to a transit. So anyway, now also some other things I'm going to talk about. The Sun by house position could indicate as to how strong the Sun is impacting you as far as your chart goes. Now, if someone has, say, the Sun in an angular house, the 1st, 4th, 7th, or 10th, it may be emphasized more than, say, it is in a cadet house. The cadet houses are 3rd, 6th, 9th, and 12th, and I do believe the 12th house really, especially, is where that energy of that Sun can be depleted and dissipated. So anyway, Another thing too is if somebody has the sun in Leo or Aries, it may come out stronger than in another sign. Now, the only thing about it is, though, keep in mind too that the sun in our chart represents our basic wants, as the moon represents our emotional needs. The sun is more about action, the moon is more about reaction, and it's more responsive. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for the sun in astrology. Stay tuned next time where I will be talking about the moon in astrology. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.